Today, we're going to take the podcast discussion in a different direction from what I've done in the past. And in fact, it's a topic I've not covered on the podcast, and I've been recording since 2020. So this will be interesting to dive into this discussion. And what we'll be discussing is exercise, childbirth. And I know that many of you listening, you're women over the age of 40, 50, 60, perhaps you are past that age of having kiddos. But I know that many of you have daughters who are perhaps they're pregnant, they're getting ready to have kids. I know I've been through this with clients who are supporting their daughters through the pregnancy, trying to be as helpful as they can through the process. I thought this would be very good information for all of us, even like myself, who I one day hope to be a grandma and hope to be coming alongside my daughters. So today I have with me Gina Conley, and she is the founder of MamasteFit, which is a perinatal fitness training company located in North Carolina. She supports women throughout their pregnancy, birth, and beyond. And it's one of the only training facilities exclusively serving pre and postnatal fitness training clients in the United States. Gina has her master's in exercise science and is the author of Training for Two, love the title, a book about how to use prenatal fitness to support a strong and pain-free pregnancy as you prepare for birth. Gina is a birth doula who has supported over 200 in-person births. She combines her experience as a fitness trainer and a birth professional to create comprehensive programs that support her clients. Gina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk with your audience.
Great. For the listeners, there's a bit of a delay, so bear with us. We were having some technical issues getting set up. This happens from time to time. Definitely not a perfect world as far as tech's concerned. So we're gonna work around it. But Gina, I was wondering, how did you get into this line of work? Were you a fitness trainer first, and then you had your own children, and that led you to this? What came first?
So I actually was in a completely different career. I used to be in the Army as an Army officer, and my husband and I decided that we wanted to start a family together, and we decided that it would be best for our family for me to transition off of active duty to be a stay-at-home mom. So after my daughter was born and I finished up my maternity leave with the military, I transitioned to a stay-at-home mom and was just trying to kind of figure out what I was going to do with my all my free time that I had with a baby. But I wanted something to still kind of intellectually stimulate myself, like a creative outlet for myself that was more than just being a mom. And while staying home with my baby was super fulfilling, I just wanted something a little bit more for just myself that I can continue to build and maybe generate a stream of income for us, as a family. And so I started doing pre and postnatal fitness training. And I started in a personal training fitness facility located in our town and started just clients just kind of started showing up. They wanted a place that they can bring their babies. They wanted a place they can meet other new moms. And we just started kind of figuring out everything together, which was really exciting. I did some fitness training while I was in the military, so it was kind of an easy transition to more of the civilian side for me. And so I started figuring out what exercises made sense for folks during their pregnancies, which one made sense for them postpartum. And what was unique about my experience is I didn't just write a program based on my own pregnancy and my own postpartum experience, which can be really unique from other people's experiences. And even for myself between pregnancies has been really different. I was able to see what does the average person need during their pregnancy? What movements made sense for most people versus which ones only really made sense for me and my body. And so this really helped me to understand different perspectives of a pregnancy experience, how different labors may go, how different postpartum experiences may go, to really make a much more well-rounded program. After about a year of doing just the fitness training, one of my prenatal clients asked me to be her doula, and I was like, sure. And so I took a course to figure out what you're supposed to do as a doula. And I ended up being a backup for another doula that was in our area. And what a doula is like a labor buddy for you. So it's kind of like a birth coach. And so I was backing up for this other doula, was able to attend a lot of births like really quickly, which is pretty like not normal for a new doula. Usually it takes you a really long time to kind of get all that experience. I was really lucky to get a lot of experience really fast. And so I already had attended a bunch of births before I even made it to the birth for the one client that wanted me to be her doula. And then it just kind of went really quickly from there. While I was attending births, I was noticing that there were certain trends and like common movements that folks were doing during their labors. And I was like, well, if we implement some of these movements during our prenatal program, it could potentially make a labor experience easier, and started kind of making our program a little bit more of support all the way from conception through pregnancy, really helping folks to navigate their labors and then helping them recover in the postpartum. And so this allowed me to be both a perinatal fitness trainer and a birth professional, which is really not normal. Usually folks are either one or the other. And so I'm pretty unique at MamasteFit, where we offer both expertise so that we really have this like streamlined support throughout the entire experience. As my business has grown, I've also grown my own family. So now I'm a mom of four. And each pregnancy journey has been like a new experience where I'm figuring out different things. I'm exploring movement in my own body in addition to my client's body. We've now expanded online, so we have a lot of online clients as well that we're supporting. And so we're really able to make our programs really well rounded. And it's something that I've been pretty proud to build in addition to raising my kids at the same time.
I think that's great. What a wonderful business to have to help women through this whole journey, from beginning all the way through the end. Now, you talk about being a doula. What is the difference between a doula and a midwife?
So this is a common confusion for folks where they think that a midwife and a doula are kind of interchangeable, like you need to decide kind of between the two, but they're actually two really different roles. A midwife can be more compared to like an OB, so they're your medical provider. This is someone that you can choose to help support you medically throughout your pregnancy. So they're the ones that are doing your prenatal appointments. They're ones that are doing kind of all the assessments on like your blood pressure, checking on baby, and they're kind of on the more medical aspect, making sure that you and baby are healthy and like that pregnancy is progressing normally. And then they're ones that are going to medically help you during your labor. And so they are doing like medical assessments, diagnosis, and like helping you kind of deliver or catch your baby essentially. So I would compare a midwife more to like an OB than I would to a doula. A
Mm.
doula is a non-medical support person, so they're just kind of like your buddy that's there, but they have a lot of experience with labor. So they typically have more experience with labor than maybe you and your partner do. And so they can give you kind of that inside perspective. You also hire them. So they work for you. They don't work for the hospital or the both location that you're giving birth at. So they're going to help advocate for you and help you kind of have the experience that you're wanting. They also provide continuous labor support. So for me, as soon as my clients call me, I join them and I stay with them until their baby is born. I'm by their side. Continuous labor support has been shown to be really beneficial to improving birth outcomes, to decreasing your risk of C-section, to decreasing your risk of needing additional interventions during your labor. It tends to help you have a more positive experience too, which is going to be different than your medical provider, which they typically come in every once in a while, like to check in on you. Maybe they'll say hi when you first get there, and then you'll see them again when you're pushing your baby out. You might see your nurse a little bit more than you see them, but then your doula is going to be with you the whole time. So that's kind of the difference between the two. A midwife is a medical support person, so they're kind of making sure that you and your baby are safe and healthy throughout your experience. While a doula is there as your non-medical support person, more like your labor buddy, and they're helping to make sure that you feel comfortable, that you're moving well, that you are like kind of tolerating labor like emotionally and physically a little bit better. So that's kind of like the comparison between the two.
Now, have you had an instance, and this might sound like a really odd question, but where a doctor or a midwife does not want a doula there, or you can sense a little bit of tension, or are they mostly receptive to having a doula come in for the birth process?
Yeah, so that can happen if maybe the provider is feels like that the doula is kind of stepping outside of like their
Yeah.
scope or potentially impacting their ability to just do whatever they want more so. So I personally feel like I stay within my scope, but I know that there are doulas out there that don't quite stay within their scope, that maybe can be a little bit more conflict provoking with medical staff. And so like you don't want to bring someone into your space that's going to increase the conflict, you don't want someone that's going to be super aggressive about it. You want somebody that has a lot of tact that's going to be helping you navigate the experience. But sometimes you can have a provider that does not like to be told no, and they do not want someone to like try to do something different than their medical recommendation. Maybe they have a little bit of a God complex. Maybe I have a medical degree. How dare you have an opinion on anything medicine? And so ultimately, like our providers are there to be experts about birth, about pregnancy, as in general. Like they obviously have a medical expertise, they're really well trained, but you are going to be the expert in you. Like you know your own labor, your own body, your baby the best. And so there has to be a balance between the two, and a doula can help you find that balance. And so if you have a provider that is not into having doulas because they don't like to be told no, they don't want to have a conversation with you, that would be a huge red flag to me. And I would not want that provider to support my labor because they're probably going to push things on me without wanting to have a conversation. You know, one of the things that contributes towards negative or traumatic birth experiences is feeling that you were no longer in charge or that you were just kind of a passive participant of your labor, regardless if you have a vaginal birth or a cesarean birth. And so if you have a provider that does not want to have a conversation with you, that does not entertain questions, and you don't feel like you're informed or that you have decision-making authority, it's not going to be a good time during your labor experience. And so one of the things that I would recommend for any of the listeners that like daughters are maybe going through this is just ask them how they feel after their appointments. Hey, like, how did your doctor's appointment go? How did your midwife appointment go? And if they still feel like really uneasy, like, oh, I don't know, like I just didn't feel good at my appointment, that's a huge red flag to me. Like, do you feel comfortable asking your provider questions? And if you don't, like, we probably need to find somebody else to support our labor. Typically, there's going to be options. Sometimes there's little pockets of area where there isn't a ton of options available to you. But if you live somewhat close to a big city, like we live near Raleigh, and there's like 10 hospitals and like 30 clinics that you can choose from. So you can ideally find a clinic that vibes best with you. But if you leave your appointments and you feel uneasy, that's a red flag to me. Now, if you leave it and you feel really good, you feel like you were listened to, like that's going to be a really good sign going into your labor experience. So and then the same thing, if you have a doula that like everything that you say, they're like, oh, why would you do that? Like you should never be induced. Like they have really strong opinions that they're pushing on you. They may not be a good fit for you either. So I would definitely recommend for anyone that is looking to hire a doula to interview them, to get a good fit for their personality and see if their personality meshes with yours, because you're supposed to build a relationship with them. And if you're not really vibing with them either, like that can also be an issue during your labor.
I could see that being very uncomfortable if a woman, didn't vibe with them, like you said, or felt pressured in some way. So this is such great advice. Now, a couple of things I was thinking as you were speaking, how similar it is being, because I'm a health coach, I'm a functional medicine health coach. So there's that fine line of someone can come to me and say, my doctor says I'm pre-diabetic, I need to be looking at nutrition and this and that. But I have to be so careful not to overstep that line and go out of my scope of practice, that I'm there to support, but not to give medical advice. So I kind of saw a similarity there of walking that fine line and it being more of a partnership, like part of the team, like, okay, you've got part of your care team. And then I was thinking, does the doula, are you in communication with them throughout the pregnancy, or is it just for the birth process?
So I'm with them throughout their pregnancy. So usually as soon as you hire a doula, they can provide you support. So I have clients that'll text me questions that they have, like, hey, they're getting ready to go to an appointment. Like, what questions should I ask my provider? And again, it is a partnership. Like, I'm a member of the team. It's not me versus their medical provider. I want to help them be able to facilitate communication so that they can get the best advice, they can get the best resources that they can from their provider. So yeah, I'm supporting them throughout their pregnancy by helping them understand what their different options are and to help them know what questions to ask their doctor. So, hey, like if they message me and they're like, I'm having these issues or these symptoms, I'm like, okay, it could potentially, maybe it looks like this. I'm not 100%, but these are good questions to ask your provider. Or, hey, I would call your provider right now and talk to them about that. Or, hey, this is something that can maybe wait, but if you feel uneasy, maybe you can call them just to kind of give them that extra guidance so they don't have to Google it, essentially. So I could sometimes be like a in between or like a buffer of whether or not should I see my doctor right now or should I wait, or what questions should I ask at my next appointment. But same thing, I'm not diagnosing them, I'm not trying to give them medical advice, but helping them to know how to communicate better with their providers.
So good, so important. I was just speaking with a woman that I know, and she's in the later terms of her pregnancy. In fact, she's getting ready to have her baby very, very soon. And she was expressing to me so much frustration because her appointments with her OBGYN are like 10, 15 minutes. And she says she'll have all these questions and she doesn't feel like she gets her questions answered. And it's not necessarily the fault of the doctor. I think the system is what the system is, especially in Albuquerque. They're seeing patient after patient. They're really, we have a shortage of doctors here. So they're very overworked, overloaded. They simply don't have the time. So, what a wonderful thing, because that's how health coaching is, where you can kind of step in and give somebody that support that the doctors, they really don't have that time to listen. Now, I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about the exercise. I think there's so many misconceptions of how can a pregnant woman exercise? What should she do? What should she not do? Can you unpack this a little bit for us? Are women able to strength train? Are there do's? Are there don'ts?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of misconceptions and myths about prenatal fitness. The main ones are going to be, does exercising impact the length of your pregnancy? So can it cause a miscarriage or does it cause preterm labor? And then does exercise negatively impact your baby's growth? And the answer to both of those, just to debunk them right away, is no. It does not negatively impact the length of your pregnancy, and it does not negatively impact your baby's growth. And so if those are the concerns, like if grandmas are concerned about like their grandchild and they're like, oh my God, like she's exercising too much, or maybe like your daughter is feeling really uneasy, because there is a lot of conflicting information out there, you can feel assured that exercise is relatively safe to do. Now, obviously, if somebody has like a pre-existing complication, if their provider is really adamant that exercise is unsafe, then those would be like the rare instances when it would not be recommended. But in general, if you're a low-risk pregnancy, exercise is very safe to do. And there's really not a lot of inherently dangerous exercises. I would say ones, if you're exercising in a place where the environment is really unsafe, it's like really hot and humid, like you have a potential for fall risk or like something potentially falling on you, like those would not be ideal places to exercise. If you're doing a movement that there's a higher risk of falling, like something as simple as box jumps, those would probably not be recommended throughout pregnancy. So those are really the only like inherently dangerous things when it comes to exercise. But other than that, like there's a lot of stuff that we could do, and there's a lot of benefits to exercising throughout pregnancy. So we usually hear about all like the scary stuff, like don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, but we don't always hear about like, well, why should I exercise? Like, what is my motivation for this? One, babies of moms who exercise throughout their pregnancy, their nervous system is more developed, and so when they're born, they have more brain development, they have more cognitive function, they have improved language skills in the first year of life, and they have improved motor skills. So they're going to be doing fine motor skills. They're going to be doing the big motor skills where they're like crawling and walking a little bit earlier, because they just have more stimulation from all that exercise. The second thing is they tend to be leaner at birth, so they have a little bit more muscle mass. They're going to be more resilient to stress, both during pregnancy, the stress of labor, and then in the postpartum. And so they're like little newborn tests that they do after they're born. Their scores tend to be a little bit higher if their mom was exercising, because they can transition well. They're very resilient in that, like during that pregnancy well into childhood. These babies have more blood volume. So again, they have more oxygen flow. They're going to be, that's one of the main things why they're more resilient to stress. So there's a lot of benefits for our baby that I don't think a lot of folks are even aware of. Some of the myths about exercising is, well, don't exercise in your first trimester. Don't strength train because your placenta will detach. And there's a lot of like fear mongering involving with it. I mean, you can exercise in your first trimester if you feel comfortable. Usually the biggest thing is folks are fatigued and they're really nauseous. So if you're not taking in any calories, exercise may not be great for you. Like maybe we're just going to do some gentle walks, some gentle yoga if you're super fatigued. Like really begin to honor like how you're feeling within your body. That first trimester might be a bust. If you feel great, you can absolutely continue to exercise. You can walk, you can strength train, you can really do whatever feels good for you. Once we hit the second trimester, most of us start to feel a lot better. We have this big boost of energy because our blood volume has almost doubled. And so we're just going to have a lot more like energy at this point. If you want to continue to do whatever you're doing in the first trimester, let's say you didn't have the nausea and fatigue and you were able to exercise, you can continue to strength train and go for walks. At this point, we may start to transition to more lower impact activities as belly begins to grow. It just gets really bouncy. It's like trying to run without a sports bra on, like it doesn't feel great. It's going to be kind of the same for the belly. So kind of transitioning to lower impact activities at that point. So instead of walking or running, maybe we're walking. Instead of jumping, maybe we're just doing more static type exercises instead. Like some of like the more dynamic power moves, maybe shifting to more like stationary, like static positions. And then as we enter the third trimester, fatigue levels begin to come back up again. We're more fatigued and we may lower intensity. But overall, you continue to exercise throughout your pregnancy. There's really no inherently dangerous exercises. I would say at a minimum, whatever feels good for you in your body is a great goal to do. So if just going for walks feels really good for you, like aim for like 3 to 4 walks a week that are like 30 to 40 minutes at a moderate intensity. That's been shown to be incredibly beneficial for our pregnancy. If you want to strength train, go ahead and strength train. I would say my recommendation would be like no more than 70 to 80% in your first and second trimester effort levels. And that's different than 70 to 80% like of your 1 rep max pre-pregnancy. So essentially what we're looking at when it comes to lifting is you can do all your reps, feel really good, your form is really good, and you maybe have like 2 or 3 left in the tank. Like if you did 2 or 3 more, your form would start to compromise. And so that's kind of like my gauge when it comes to lifting during pregnancy, the first and second trimester. Once you hit it to third, intensity levels usually have to drop because we're just more tired at that point. And so maybe we're at like 50 to 60% effort level when it comes to our lifts. So maybe weights are getting a little bit lighter. If you're using a barbell, maybe we're transitioning to dumbbells, but you can absolutely strength train throughout pregnancy. I would say pregnancy is not the time to PR. We're not trying to do 1 rep maxes. We're not training to failure because it's really important that we maintain good and optimal during our lifts because there's a lot of changes happening within our bodies during pregnancy. How we stabilize changes, how we manage pressure really changes. And both of those are really important to keeping our joints stable, to keeping our spine stable. And if we are really unstable with our lifts, or if our form is really compromised, if we can't manage pressure well, this is where we're going to start to see injury and more pelvic floor type issues. And so that all really changes during pregnancy, which is why I recommend lowering intensity levels to something that's still challenging, but we're not training to failure during pregnancy. You can continue to run generally until I would say probably no more than like the 16 to 20 week mark, just because it starts to get really uncomfortable. And similar to how our stabilization and our pressure management changes, our biomechanics begin to change too. We have more mass in the front of our body, our center of gravity is shifting. And so when we're running and it's a really high impact activity, this could potentially cause maybe some more injury, maybe more pelvic floor issues. Obviously, if someone feels good in their body and they were like, I don't care, Gina, what you say, you do you're an adult, you can make decisions. But I would probably recommend transitioning to like walking or like stationary cardio machines instead, or swimming or aqua jogging, just because you're going to feel better in your body. I was a collegiate runner. I ran ultra marathons before I had kids. And at 16 weeks, I was like, I don't feel good in my body. So it's okay to change what you do to something that feels better for you, like during your pregnancy. Like it's not going to completely destroy like your progress or any gains that you've done in the past. It's okay to modify as things go, and you'll have to modify with lifts. Another one of the common myths is just do what you did pre-pregnancy, just a little bit lighter. But then that becomes a problem if somebody was sedentary before pregnancy. If they didn't exercise, well, what did they do? Did they just continue to not exercise when there's all of these benefits to exercising? You can start new workout programs during pregnancy, but remember that you're new to exercise. So we're not going to jump into a CrossFit workout day 1 and like try to RX the workout. Like, we're going to do like the novice class, like the beginner like class, like the slow easy class. Like we're going to ease into the process, but you can absolutely start a program during pregnancy as well. I would say if someone is not familiar at all with exercising, not familiar at all with lifting, I would recommend at a minimum following videos when you work out. So like the on-demand videos is a really great option. Hiring a personal trainer that's somewhat familiar with pregnancy would be a great option if there's one available to you. If there's no like perinatal fitness trainers, just a typical fitness trainer is probably going to be helpful to teach you how to lift. Like just, hey, just show me beginner stuff. If you're uncomfortable working with me, I'll just refer to me to somebody else. So those would be kind of like my main recommendations. If you're like brand new to exercise, find someone to help support you or watch videos. I have a ton of like free videos on my YouTube channel, but there's so many like YouTube channels that have like free workout videos. There's paid on-demand courses that you can join too that have all the workout videos for you to follow. And they all kind of vary in like the type of movements that they do or the intensity levels so that you can find one that feels best for you as well. Because the way that I like to work out and the way that I coach workouts may not be totally aligned with how somebody likes to work out. I don't like to say that I'm the best trainer for everybody. I think there's different options out there that people can explore. But if you are exercising pre-pregnancy, you can typically do something similar, but you'll have to modify at certain points, and being mindful of how your body is actually feeling and honoring how your body is feeling is going to be really important during pregnancy. And I find when you are really in tune with your body during your prenatal workouts and you kind of let go of your ego and surrender to like whatever the day needs, it really translates well into labor, where we don't always get a say in exactly how things go. But if we're willing to kind of accept each day and each contraction and each moment during our labor and during our prenatal workouts, it's just going to serve us a lot better into motherhood, where our small children also have opinions and they like to do things on their own. And so there's a lot of surrender that happens during pregnancy that really translates into labor and to motherhood.
Such good advice. It's funny, many years ago, it's probably been 12 years ago, I was working for a small studio here in Albuquerque, and the owner said, "We need somebody to teach certified yoga. We need somebody to teach prenatal yoga." And I'm like, no, I don't know what I'm doing. I remember being asked to do that, doing all this research and being almost panicked. Like, what if I do something wrong? And what if this hurts her? And, going through all this research of which poses were good and which poses aren't. What is your opinion on yoga during pregnancy? Is it something that's changing with each trimester? Are there poses that aren't good to do?
So with yoga, really the main poses that I would say would not be beneficial is like belly down postures where your
Yeah.
belly is flat on the floor, because that would be uncomfortable. And like super deep twists, like those, if you've ever taken a yoga class, they're like, we're going to do a detox twist. That
Yes.
would probably not be great for a pregnancy, because it's not going to feel comfortable for you. But there's not really inherently dangerous movements during yoga. Prenatal yoga is usually something that's commonly recommended during pregnancy as well, because it's low impact. It's a lot of stretching, a lot of mobility work, which can be great for pregnancy. With prenatal yoga, sometimes the instructor may feel that twisting is really bad for pregnancy. If you twist too much, this is going to cause the placenta to detach. Everything's about the placenta detaching for whatever reason. It's really embedded in there. It is not just going to like detach on its own. You can absolutely twist during pregnancy, and you should twist during pregnancy, because your spine is meant to move. Like, it's meant to rotate. And if you don't rotate at all, one, it's not functional. Like, we need to twist during our days. Like, to reach behind me to grab something, I need to twist in my spine. And so I need to incorporate that into my workout so that I have that functional mobility. In addition, if you do not twist, this is going to impact how your pelvis can open. Like, we need open and closed hip positions to create space throughout our pelvis. With these asymmetrical twisting type motions, it creates diagonal space through the pelvis, which helps baby rotate. And one of the areas that we tend to see more labor stalls is towards like late stages of labor. So somebody is like 8 centimeters and they get like quote unquote stuck, or they've been pushing for like a super long time. These can both be related to issues with opening the bottom of the pelvis, which relates more to internal rotation of the hip and of the pelvis. During pregnancy, we tend to favor more external rotation or open hip position. So think like toes out or belly away from the thigh. So like wide knees, like all like the really open, like chest opener type positions. We favor that during pregnancy. It's more comfortable for us to be in that position because we're just belly's kind of leading the way for us. But we tend to have a little bit more trouble finding more of the internal rotation, or kind of like knees in, like ankles out kind of positions. If you think like my belly comes more towards my thigh, closed hip positions. But those get a really bad rap where they're like, oh, well, you can't do that because you're squishing your belly and that's dangerous. You can only do open hip positions. Well, we already favor open hip. And if we don't integrate closed hip positions at all, we're going to have trouble when labor comes. One, the back half of your pelvic floor is going to be really tight. Your sacrum is going to have a hard time moving if you only favor open hip positions. And you're going to have a hard time opening the bottom half of your pelvis to get your baby underneath the pubic bone to be born. So we do need to integrate some of those closed hip positions as well. And when I say closed hip positions, essentially it's your knee or your thigh coming towards your belly. So feeling more of a stretch kind of in the glute type area is going to be a closed hip position. On our YouTube channel, we have a ton of exercises there. So if somebody is like, I need this visual, just type in MamasteFit hip shift and you'll see what a closed hip position looks like. We have a ton of videos on our channel too, where we explain different movements to create space within their pelvis. We have like whole playlists on all of this stuff as well to help you visualize it. Because sometimes when I talk about it, it's kind of hard to understand what the movement looks like. But with prenatal yoga, sometimes they really overemphasize the external rotation, but we really need to integrate the internal rotation as well. And so if you're doing your yoga practice and you're not having any closed hip positions that feel more like the knee is coming in and you're feeling more of a stretch kind of in the sacral area, you need to either integrate that on your own or maybe find a different yoga instructor. I would also highly recommend, if you are doing prenatal yoga, to also integrate strength training as well. Stretching is wonderful during pregnancy. It's a really easy thing to do. It's very low impact. And especially if you have lower energy levels, it can be really helpful. But we do need to integrate the strength and resistance training, because during pregnancy, we also have a lot of extra laxity going on within our joints. And so if you do not integrate strength training, you're probably going to be in a little bit more discomfort, especially in like the pelvic region and low back, where sometimes there's too much movement happening in the pelvic joints and we don't have the strength or coordination of the muscles to help kind of stabilize those joints. And so we want all that extra movement because that helps these big old baby heads like pass through our pelvis. But if we don't have the supporting structure to help stabilize them during movement, it can cause discomfort. And so strength training can be super beneficial. We also have more mass during pregnancy. And so if we're strength training in the backside of our body, like our back muscles, hamstrings, glutes, calves, this is going to help us kind of counter that shift forward. So we're going to be more comfortable during our pregnancy. And then the strength training is really going to support us in the postpartum as well. After you give birth, there's probably going to be like a month time frame where you're not exercising, and that's going to be a lot of deconditioning. And if we go into that with more muscle mass, with more strength, it's going to be much easier to recover in the postpartum as well. And then in addition, strength training as women is incredibly beneficial for us.
Yes.
It's going to help to make your bones denser, and it potentially can help to decrease from gestational diabetes. And so there's a lot of benefits to strength training just in general, but especially during pregnancy.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in strength training. And it's interesting to hear the perspective of doing strength training during pregnancy, because I'm always focusing on strength training for the perimenopausal years as we lose estrogen, lose bone mass, lose muscle. But really, it's important for all women, all stages of life, wherever you're at, to incorporate that. So I'm really glad that you are emphasizing that and then seeing that it can help with the diabetes, because really when you're moving, you have some place for that blood sugar to go. When you have muscle, there's some place for that blood sugar to go, which at any age, any stage of life is going to be beneficial. Now, have you had, and this might sound like such an odd question, I think of things as you're talking, but I was thinking about in vitro fertilization and how I've had friends that have had twins or triplets even. Have you had women coming in, they're pregnant with twins, they're pregnant with triplets, and how do you navigate that situation?
So we haven't had any in-person clients that had triplets, but one year, like everyone had twins. There was like something in the water in our area. I was like, I cannot get pregnant this year because it'll be twins for sure. So the main thing that we do is there's going to be some modification, typically a little bit earlier with twins, because you start kind of growing a little bit faster. Like you have two babies instead of just one. So some of the modifications that I would be doing for somebody who's like 20 weeks, I would probably start implementing for somebody that's 12 weeks, just because their body is shifting a lot faster. Sometimes the first trimester is a little bit rougher for twin pregnancies as well. So we maybe kind of have like 1 to 2 months where they're not doing much because it's especially hard with twins. And then we're modifying much earlier, kind of like the biggest things. Once we kind of hit to the third trimester, at this point, the risk of going into labor is a little bit earlier because of like the multiples. And so we're typically going to avoid like super deep hip flexion. So like super deep squats, we're putting like too much pressure on the cervix. But typically during pregnancy, doing deep flexion activities and putting pressure on the cervix is not a huge issue because we don't have a ton of prostaglandins going on. And the prostaglandins is kind of what's coupling with oxytocin to help the uterine contractions be really efficient to begin the labor process. Once we make it towards the end of pregnancy, though, the hormone shift begins to happen. And the more kind of deep hip exercises that we do, this could help bring on labor. And so if we have twin pregnancies, hormones are a little bit different, a little bit earlier. There's a lot going on. We also just have more weight on us. And so there could be an additional amount of pressure on the cervix. So once we hit like third trimester, we typically don't recommend doing like really deep hip flexion movements. You can still do like squats and stuff, but we're going to do like a box squat where it's above parallel essentially. But that would kind of be like the main difference with twins is usually modifying a lot earlier. And then once we hit third trimester, we're just avoiding super deep hip flexion because we don't want to make anything begin before it needs to. And then just lots of communication with our client and kind of whatever communication they're having with their provider. Like we don't specifically talk to their doctors, but we talk with them to see if there's anything going on. Because sometimes there's a likelihood of developing complications a little bit more during multiple pregnancies or pregnancies with multiples. So we just want to be aware, like, hey, are you developing any complications that would require us to modify or maybe omit certain type of exercises? Or if you're dealing with high blood pressure, like, is there a likelihood that you'll need to be induced earlier? Because that may change, like, what type of movements that we do or we don't do. So in general, not a whole ton of change, just things are going to happen a little bit earlier in the pregnancies with modifications than we typically would with a singleton pregnancy.
Now, going to the post where a woman has had her baby, and I want to talk about that whole process and exercise and how that can help with recovery and with recovery from, say, a C-section. But something else came to my mind because I do hear this a lot as well, is women suffering postpartum depression. I know this is a medical question in a sense, so you might not be able to answer, but have you found that exercise during pregnancy could potentially help with some of the postpartum depression that can happen?
So typically, if you're exercising, this can improve your mood and it could potentially decrease your risk of developing postpartum depression. Some of the things that could impact our mood if we're having a lot of just like functional issues, if like we're leaking or our pelvic floor hurts, we're in a ton of pain, this can really impact our mood as well. And so if we are exercising and we're feeling strong within our body, this is going to decrease your pain, improve your quality of life, and you're going to be in a better mental state. In addition, exercise is going to help to release hormones that make us feel good. If we're moving our body, sometimes that boosts our own confidence. And so exercising is not going to like 100% like remove the risk of developing depression. But in general, we find that our clients who are exercising, especially if they're like getting out of the house and like going to the gym or they're going to a place to do a class, like that can really help to boost the mood, in addition to create a sense of community as well with whatever environment they're going to. Exercise can sometimes be hard though postpartum when you have little kids, especially if you have a little baby. Some like gyms have childcare restrictions based on kids' ages. I know for me, when we were in a place where I didn't have my mom nearby, the gym wouldn't take kids less than 18 months. And I was like, well, I can't go to this gym if I can't bring my 6-month old. So I would have to coordinate with my husband of like when I can go to the gym or do stuff at home. So there can be a little bit more like it can be more complicated once we start adding kids into the mix of how do I get my exercise in. And so what I would recommend if somebody is, hey, I exercise makes me feel good in my body. I know it's important for me not only physically but for my mental health, is to just take bite-sized pieces of exercise. Include your kids in it as much as you can. You don't have to do a 1-hour workout to get benefit. You can do 10 minutes. You can do 15 minutes. It can just be in your living room, mostly body weight movements. Like you can get like a set of dumbbells and it's like some bands that you have at home that you can do some movement. So just grab like bite-sized pieces of workouts. It doesn't have to look like pre-kids. It's not going to look like pre-kids. Even for me now, like I've got 4 kids, my workouts do not look like pre-kids. And it's the phase of life that I'm in right now, and it's okay. And so a little bit of expectation management and kind of adjusting can be super beneficial. Something that my mom does for me that is like really helpful for me mentally, especially when I'm feeling really overwhelmed, is she'll come and she'll just like watch all the kids and just tell me to go work out in like my home gym or go to our gym and work out for like an hour. And she's like, just go do you. Like I got the kids, like don't worry, like I'm gonna handle it for you. And so that help from her has been so beneficial for me with my own like mood, like helping me postpartum with like my own mental health. To know that I could go and move my body and know that somebody that I like truly trust has my baby because it's really hard when they're like really little as well. So I don't know if that totally answered your question, but
It did.
exercise has definitely been shown to be super beneficial with decreasing postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and different mood disorders. I would still recommend like working with a therapist if somebody is
Oh,
dealing with a lot of anxiety, like the intrusive thoughts and things like that can be really scary postpartum. And so understanding like, well, what is normal, what is not, being willing to have conversations can be really helpful. Like for our listeners that's daughters are going through this, just ask them how they're feeling, like really feeling, and let them be vulnerable with you can just be a huge like game changer for them as well. And then just be there to be like, hey, like I'll take the baby, you go do something for just yourself. I know there was a lot of pressure for me, like even though my mom is like super willing to like be as helpful as possible, to feel like if I was going to ask her to like watch my kids, I needed to be doing something productive. Like I needed to be working or to be working out or to be doing something like super productive. I didn't feel that I can ask her to watch my kids so I can do something relaxing for myself, or that I can just work on this puzzle, or I can go do this like relaxing activity, or I can just sit on my couch and watch TV while she watched the kids. Like it was really hard for me to ask for that, but the recovery time and like the restful time was also super important. And so she'll see like when I'm more stressed, and she'll be like, just go play on your phone for like an hour. I got it. And that's something else that has been very helpful for me mood wise, even though it's not related to exercise. Like the rest and recovery portion is also just as important.
I would agree with that. I remember getting that advice from a friend. She said, I want you to, she had a great babysitter, and I did not have, parents that could help with the care living close at the time. And she said, I want you to use my babysitter, and I want you to do something fun. I don't run errands, don't do work, don't do something productive. As you said, just go relax, go to a coffee shop and sit and have a cup of coffee. This was pre-phones, so we couldn't take laptops and phones into the cafe, but I would just drive somewhere and treat myself to lunch or breakfast or something like that. And so helpful. And then I think that support component that moms can give their daughters. I read a book, it's been probably about 2 years ago. It's actually a manuscript where someone asked me, said, will you review this for me? This is my book. I'm a writer doing some reciprocal work. We would read one another's work, give feedback. And she wrote a book on how moms could support their daughters through pregnancy, after pregnancy. And at first I was like, oh, I don't want to read this book. I'm in a different stage of life, but it was so good. It was so helpful. And how sometimes they need an advocate, even during the pregnancy process, where mom, if it's handled correctly, can come alongside a partner and be an advocate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like as mothers or grandmas, like, we can play a really big role in supporting our daughters during this experience to help them feel more confident as they navigate it. One thing that my dad said to me that like really stuck with me, and it was just like this random statement that he made where he was like, you're a really good mom. And then he just kind of like went about his day, and I was like, oh, you think so? Okay. And so I think just even like simple compliments can make a really big difference in how our daughters are feeling too, and just their confidence navigating this phase. There's so much misinformation out there. There's so much like this feeling of like if I don't do things perfect, I'm gonna just like ruin my kids'
Yeah,
experience. Like even on social media, it's like you should only talk to your kids like this, but not this. If you praise them, like all these bad things will
I
happen. If
know.
you never compliment them, all these things. It's like there's so much conflict out there, and it makes it really hard to feel confident in ourselves to know like I do know best. Like I can make decisions for me and for my family, and I can feel confident about those decisions. Like especially during pregnancy when that's like make sure you ask your doctor before you eat that. Make sure you ask your doctor before you do this exercise. Make sure you ask. So there's so much like asking for permission as we navigate pregnancy. So much asking for permission during our own labors. And then in the postpartum, it's like asking for permission to like just do basic things as a mother. And so our mothers can really help us feel just so much more confident just navigating this phase of life without judgment, so that we can figure out what works best for our families, for ourselves, with movement, with navigating our pregnancy, preparing for our own birth experiences, navigating motherhood. And I think that's like a huge role that our moms can play. My mom has been like incredible for me during my pregnancies and births, and now to help support me as I raise my 4 kids with her as my third parent. But it's made a huge difference with how much like it improves my mood. I feel more confident in my body. I feel more confident approaching like motherhood. And so, yeah.
It can be hard. I mean, here I am. I have 3 grown kids. They're in their 20s. They're 24, 26, 28. And there's still that tendency as a woman to feel like, did I do it right? Did I do enough? Could I have done that differently? And we really put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do all of the things, like you say it this way. And, you got to do it this way or that way. And feeling this kind of pressure all the time.
Yeah, no, I completely sympathize with this feeling of pressure that we need to do everything in this one certain way or this one perfect way. And yeah, it's hard to navigate this phase of life. And I think if we have the social support with our family, with friends, and like a positive community around us, it can really make a huge difference in how we navigate this experience, and how we raise the next generation.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think, you know, we're doing the best we can in the moment with the information we have. I always remind myself of that too, because it's so different now. There's more information than when I was raising my kids. So I remind myself, hey, you know, you did the best you could with what you had in that period and then in time of life. And now, as women are starting to exercise again after having a baby, how long should they be waiting? And I'm sure it depends on the pregnancy. Was it a cesarean? Was it a vaginal birth? But how long do you generally see women waiting before they start to exercise again?
So generally, before we resume to structured exercise, we're gonna wait probably like 4 to 6 weeks at a minimum, because we really need that initial timeline to help us just heal from the trauma of birth. Like, birth is a planned injury, whether you had a vaginal birth or whether you had a cesarean birth. Like, we need that time frame just for that initial tissue healing. The first about week after we give birth is going to be the inflammation phase. There's a lot of blood flow. There's a little bit of swelling. We really don't want to be doing a whole ton during that phase. This is also the time frame where the placenta scab is still attached, and towards the end of it will detach. And so we have a lot more bleeding kind of going on at this point. And so generally trying to stay off our feet can be really helpful during this time frame, and supporting long-term healing. When we rush that initial process, it could really just kind of deter like healing long-term or within that first year. So for our grandmas that are listening, like, if you could just go and be with them if they want you to be there, this is like a really helpful time. For me with my mom, I would pretty much just be in the bed with the baby, and she would bring me meals, like she would bring me water. My husband was there as
Nice.
well. Like, we're really grateful that he had paternity leave. And then he would kind of manage like our older kids and our dogs and all of that. But she was like really, she was there to like help me so much. She was giving my baby baths and just trying to allow me to rest as much as possible and just kind of focus on bonding with my baby. The next 3 weeks, we're kind of moving into a more immature tissue healing time frame. So it's kind of like when you sprain your ankle, you're feeling a little bit better, but if you do too much, you can hurt it again. We're kind of in that same time frame. Like, it's still really early in that tissue healing. And so it's still really important to generally offload the tissue, but maybe like slowly kind of loading it. So we're going for like short walks. We're doing some mobility at this point, maybe some gentle core, but nothing super structured. We're just kind of like continuing to exist in our little postpartum bubble as best as we can. Once we hit like the 4 to 6 week mark, generally bleeding has stopped. And this is usually a good sign that it's okay to resume structured exercise. Most folks at this point are also seeing their provider and getting like all clear as well. But we still have to remember that pregnancy was 9 months, 9 to 10 months. And so now we're healing from pregnancy, and the healing from pregnancy can take 6 months to a year. So there's a lot of tissue healing that's happening beyond that first month postpartum. So even though we get the all clear at 4 to 6 weeks, it doesn't mean resume pre-pregnancy workouts or pre-kid workouts. It's going to be like a slow and easy process. Think like you're recovering from an injury, which again, pregnancy and birth are a planned injury. And so we're going to be really easing into the process. In our programming, we really start from the basics. If you think about like an on-ramping program or a program where they're like teaching you how to lift again or how to move your body again, we're really focusing on reconnecting with a body that feels really different. So we're reconnecting with our core, with our pelvic floor. We're relearning how to breathe and manage pressure. We're relearning like how to stabilize in different positions and like slowly integrating these different movements into our daily routine. And then advancing those over the next few weeks. So we're not going to start day one with PRing our back squat. We're going to do maybe like a kneeling squat, maybe some air squats, box squat, like some gentle movement to like feel it again, and then slowly adding from there. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of our programs. I think they're really helpful to kind of guide folks through this phase. We've had a lot of success with our clients, but there's so many programs out there as well. But essentially, just start really light, think about the movement patterns, and just kind of slowly go from there. I find that if we rush this process, it can really cause more issues down the road. So we'll have clients that'll kind of like, okay, I did some of the mobility. I'm just going to go ahead to what I'm doing before. And then 6 months postpartum, they're back in our gym and they're like, hey, it's me. I know that you told me to not do that, but I did. So, and now I'm injured. Please help me. And so I really find when you're patient with this process, it really just serves you long term. My mom is from South Korea. And so she kind of brought a lot of that Eastern Asian culture with us about especially the postpartum healing time frame of, hey, you want to rest and give your body that time to heal and then slowly come back to it. And it really has helped me like immensely postpartum to feel better in my body. And And when you're patient with the process, like 5, 6 months postpartum, you're feeling really good and you're able to really start to push things again. You're starting to lift heavier, you're starting to run more. And you can do that stuff when you're patient with the process. But it's a long time. Like 6 months is a long time to just kind of be like waiting to get there. But if you rush it, it's going to be 9 months. It's going to be 18 months before you start to feel good in your body, because we're going to be dealing with so many issues, so many pelvic floor issues, core issues, diastasis, things like that. So I find when we're really slow and deliberate with the process, it's super helpful. Other things that can be helpful is to understand that our bodies are going to be different after we give birth, and it's okay that our bodies are different after we give birth. It's not this instant bounce back. And there's a lot of pressure from like marketing on this vulnerability of shrink your waist with this. Here's my like shrink your belly program. Here's my like
Yeah.
shrink your whatever. Everything's about getting smaller. And there's so much marketing out there that is really just harmful for folks to not recognize how incredible this experience was. Like you literally grew a person, like your very own person, or 2 people, maybe 3 people. And that is an incredible feat. And I think that when we take the time to recognize how amazing that fact was, it's a lot easier to give ourselves grace and to accept that our bodies may look a little bit different. It's okay for you to want to change the way that your body looks, but when we understand what we just did and how amazing that was, it's a lot easier to be patient with the process as well and to not hate ourselves along the way. Something that I would also recommend is if somebody is feeling a lot of pressure to change the way their body looks after their postpartum, to where maybe they're wanting to rush the process to hurry up and get back to fitting in jeans or things like that, is to figure out like what is it that you don't have now that you can only have if you fit into those jeans. Like what thing do you not have? And well, you probably already have it. And when we realize that the thing that we think that we'll only get or we only deserve when we are this certain size or we look this certain way, that we already have it, it again makes it easier for us to be patient along the process. And then the last thing is the way you look does not determine your health or your function. Like we're much more focused on helping you function better and feel good within your body so that you have a higher quality of life, that you move without pain, that you can get up on off the floor with your kid without being uncomfortable, that you can keep up with them. And that is going to help to boost your mood. And then when we're moving better within our body, inherently you're probably going to lose weight if that is your goal. And so just being patient with the process is incredibly important, but it's hard to be patient because there's a lot of pressure again to look a certain way, to be a certain way. And so just accepting like you already have whatever it is you think that you only deserve if you look a certain way. You already have it, you already deserve it. Giving birth and making your own person is an incredible feat and that you should be proud of that. There's like the only body that has created life is the postpartum body, and I think that's something that should be honored.
I just love that you hit on this because this was going to be one of my questions about women wanting to look a certain way, get back to the weight that they think they should be. I remember a woman coming to me years ago and it hadn't been long since she'd had her baby. She was breastfeeding and she wanted to do this lean down. And I had to say, I'm not comfortable doing that with you. I think it's too soon. I think you need to wait. You're breastfeeding. You're just coming off childbirth. But she was in such a hurry to get that baby weight off. So, and I'm sure she was feeling that pressure and looking at social media and looking at the ads, coming across her social media. And it's everywhere for all women at all stages of life. So good that you hit on that and, encouraging women, hey, you've got time. Like take the time you need. You've made this incredible human being or human beings and just have joy in that time of life.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no rush to get back to a certain figure or really anything. Like just kind of revel in the fact that you made this person. Like that's so
Yeah.
like just that by itself is incredible. And if you're breastfeeding, you're sustaining this human with your
Yes.
own blood. That's
Yes,
incredible.
it is. How long do women stay with you after having the baby? Do they tend to want to hang around long after, or what's the average time that they stay with you in the program?
So we kind of joke We joke with in our gym specifically that the reason why we let moms bring their babies is after someone gives birth and their baby gets to be like a year old, they see all these other babies and then their baby fever kicks in and they get pregnant again. So then they become a client again by starting over in pregnancy. But we do have programs for folks beyond the initial postpartum timeframe that they can continue to work out with us. A lot of our clients do really like coming to the gym with their kids and being able to work out in the environment. For our online clients, we also offer that program online. And so we'll have folks that do our prenatal program, they do our postpartum programs, and then they do our beyond program because they like our programming style. But generally, folks will be with us for about like a year to 18 months. And then they may move on or then they get pregnant and they come back and work with us again. That's one great thing about our online programs is if you purchase it one time, you keep it for life and you could always just come back and redo it. And so it's always really exciting when we have folks that, hey, this is my third pregnancy, add me back in, or I'm postpartum again, add me back in. And it just kind of is a testament to how well our programs are for folks. And so, yeah.
And total arbitrary question, but who's the oldest client you've had?
So we've had some clients in their 40s, like they're early, I think early to mid 40s. One of them, it was an oops baby. She was like, I wasn't planning to have children, but I am here. Hello, and she was probably one of my most dedicated clients because she knew how important it was to move. She
Mhm.
understood like this was going to be really beneficial for her during her pregnancy and her postpartum. But yeah, I would say like I think she was like 43 was like the
Mhm.
oldest client that I've had.
I love it. I love it. Well, Gina, thank you so much. This has been an enlightening conversation for me. I've learned a lot. I know the listeners have learned a lot. And even for women that are going to be grandmas or their grandmas, such good information on how they can support their daughters. As we wrap up, how can you do have an online program, you said? How can
Yes, we do.
how can women tap into this?
So you can follow us on Instagram or on YouTube. We're at MamasteFit on both of those. That's where we share a lot of our free information. If you want to join any of our online courses, mamastefit.com is our website. We have education courses where we offer childbirth education. We have a postpartum education courses as well. And then we have our fitness programs, both pre and postnatal fitness on our website. We have a variety of options. And then I am the author of the book Training for Two, which is, I think, a great baby shower gift as well, or
Yes.
maybe even earlier in pregnancy. There's ton of information in the book. There's pictures, there's QR codes to videos. I think it's a really great resource for folks to navigate their pregnancies with movement, to figure out how to be comfortable, to feel strong, and to prepare their bodies for birth. And there's a little bit in there on postpartum recovery and a whole chapter on labor with like laboring positions and comfort measures as well. I always love when I show up at births and my clients have my book opened up to like the labor section and they're just like looking at what they need to do. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like, this is such a great resource.
What a wonderful gift too, either to get your daughter the book or one of the programs. I mean, what a wonderful thing for a mom to do for her daughter too. I was thinking I want grandkids so bad, but we're nowhere near there. My kids are, in different phases of life right now. But I'm thinking, buy the book and put it out as a hint. Like,
I know, just leave it out on the coffee
yeah,
table.
like here it is. Well, thank you so much, Gina. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.